Hi, I'm John. This is Callie, and welcome to Edgetone Studios. This is Callie, my studio cat. She's rarely in my videos because she doesn't normally want to be on my lap at the time that I'm doing a video, but she suddenly came for some attention. Anyways, in part 5 of my video, I was starting into the calibration of the console, and here in part 6, I continue on with that and a bit more. There's some more progress. Let's get to it. Right, Callie? Okay, what I'm doing right now is working on testing parts of the console, and I was working on putting audio through and trying the active control network, which is the bus system. So currently it's off, but basically I was taking lines in through here and routing them to other buses and checking that they came up on the VU meters. And it was working fine except for 9 to 16 were not being routed to. I wasn't getting any signal there. Then I turned the automation off and then it stopped working. I turned the automation back on and it continued to stop working. So I wasn't sure what's going on. But I'm getting some results on the automation system. So what I thought I'd do is check all the dip switches. So every one of these boards has a series of dip switches here that have to be set for the fader slot they're in. So you can see fader number and then the dip switch setting. So I'm just going through and testing all of those. And hopefully when I've got those done, I'll be at the point where I'm sure that the automation is set up right, even though it's still not fully functioning correctly. I'm getting some results from it though. More to come. Okay, this is pretty wild because I was working on the dip switches. They all turned out to be fine. But this is the first time I've turned on the board and every single fader went through its check, came up with an L instead of some weird error. I used to get a couple that had errors. And they're all looking pretty good at the moment. I don't think that means I've got the automation system working any better. But when I first turned it on, a couple of them weren't on. Like 8 is okay. That's mute's not coming on now. But there were a couple that didn't come on at all. So I opened them up, reseated them, and then they all came up properly except number 8. So it's so flaky, but it's close. I don't know if it'll make any difference, but I noticed that these 2 screws are missing from this motherboard. While I took things apart here, I reseated all the cables, started putting boards back in. I saw it bow a little bit and realized I missed 2 screws. So with those in there, maybe this will make a difference. So it turns out my console is not the only console on Vancouver Island. There's a fellow in Nanaimo named David who has a Sony MXP-3036 with 26 channels. And he's put it up for sale. He reached out to me to get some info on my console and try and get some valuation on it. And he was wondering about whether or not it was working properly. So I offered to come up and do some testing with him, bring my power supply, bring some of my test gear, and go through what we could and see if we could figure out what was working and what wasn't working. So I took a Tuesday and drove to Nanaimo and hung out with David all day in his uncle's garage where the console's stored. And we did some testing, and I forgot to take any video that day. But here's a bunch of photos of his console from his advertisements. Okay, I'm just getting my day started. And yesterday I spent pretty well 7 hours with David up in Nanaimo looking at his MXP board. And we troubleshooted as much as we could and figured out what we could find was working. We were both frustrated we didn't get it to the point where we had full channel operability going through to the mix bus. But at the end of the day, it was all good. And he's loaned me his extender cards so I can go through and start testing with those as well. I was able to borrow some already pre-wired 1/4 inch to Tuchel connectors for sends and returns so I can add a few more channels to the board. And then Zach, my tech, or one of my techs, the Washington State tech, Zach Dewey, great guy, thank you Zach. He got back to me and about my channel 9 to 16 issue. And it turns out there are jumpers on those upper motherboards, and I probably switched 9 to 16 with 25 to 32 by accident. So if I swap those motherboards back, I should get full operability. So I've set my speakers up here. I'm going to rewire in here. I had cables going all over the place for power, so since everything's disconnected, I'll get that going first and get those boards swapped. Got a coffee on the go and get to it. Let's see if I can get full action going on the board today here. So now I've pulled the modules out. You can see that this board and this board are slightly different. This one has these white jumpers on it that should be in this section, and this one needs to be over here, so that's what I'm swapping now. That's next. Okay, after swapping those motherboards around, I've got sound going again, of course. But now my issue is I can't route. I can route from 1 and 2 to 8. I can route that. I can't route anything to all the rest of the 24 tracks. So there's 11, 12. If I go down here and I mute 11 and 12, and then try to send them, say, to 1 and 2 up there, then they should be coming out on 1 and 2. And I set those as line levels so that they will get that line signal. Or maybe I set these as line level. Whatever, it's not working. So now I'm thinking that set of motherboard and that set of motherboards are backwards. We'll find out. I'm going to look again. Okay, I think these boards are incorrectly. If you look here at these jumpers, this is the board for 9 to 16, and the last two slots, the jumper is going into 15, and then it's going into 16, and the next one is starting off at jumper number 17, which you can't quite see, but you can see over here it's going to 23. The last one's actually going to 24. So those boards are in the right slots, but I'm still not able to route, so maybe I'll just have to reseat those cables, see what's going on. Although I'm getting signal all the way through, so that doesn't make a lot of sense. Okay, it's actually all working. There were no motherboards that needed swapping after the first two. As you can see, I'm sending input from 1 and 2 into everything up to 24. Hasn't been calibrated, so the VU meters are all jumping at different levels. And the reason I was messing up is because, okay, in order to get the signal going to the buses, choose line mode here. And then you choose what buses you're sending to, so I'm sending left and right there. But then all of the receiving buses have to be in line out mode to hear the signal being sent, because that's coming in the channel. If I was going then through a tape deck and back, I would be able to hear it, but I was forgetting to put these in line out mode. So that's the way to route it to the bus network and to all the channels. Not that you do that, because look where I've got the fader, because I've got 24 or 12 summed left and 12 summed right channels. So anyways, that's working. Time to start calibrating again. Woohoo, send meters, the whole shebang. Okay, I think I finally understood something I didn't understand before. I'll show you. So the instructions say, while monitoring the 2-mix out, adjust each independent differential output for best symmetry between hot and low sides reference to the ground. And I didn't really know what that meant until I suddenly realized there's a ground on the wire. So I've got both the probes, 2 probes referencing to the ground with the alligator clips. And then I'm measuring the hot and the neutral, and got 2 different signals there. And if I come down to here, I'm not sure you can see it. So there's this adjustment here, and my screwdriver just barely fits in there. But look at this. I can adjust the symmetry between them so they're as close as possible. And that's, I think, what it means. And so now I can go back and do that first channel, which I didn't really understand. That is the 2-mix out left that I'm working on right now. And then I can do the 2-mix right. I've got that extender card in. That's what that looks like when it's in place. It just brings the slots up so that you can get at the side of the card. This is really cool. Maybe I will keep this board after all. This is starting to be pretty interesting. So here I am underneath the console again because channel number 4 has not been working. I know it was working at one point in time, and now I've seen why. So it's around. Don't know if you can quite see up in there, unless I can get the flash to go. There we go. So you can see number 1 is here. 2, 3, 4, and that jack is not in there. So I've got to get that reattached. But I can't do it while filming, so that's what I'm up to now. Okay, I'm out from the console now, and I've got channel 4 out here. As you can see, the meters are on. I'm using the test tone. You can't hear it. It's going to tracks, as you can see right there, TKS. It's set to 1 kilohertz. It's set to plus 4 dBm. And now my oscilloscope is showing the signal, and it looks pretty even, but now I can adjust this one. Okay, I thought I'd show this. This is the variable resistor I'm going to be adjusting, and let's throw it off kilter for now so you can see. This is what the oscilloscope might show, and if I turn the resistor, I can get the 2 different levels or signals. It's the same signal, it's just the common and the positive as reference to ground, so I can get them even. That's one of the first steps. Then I use my voltmeter and measure some measurements here. Okay, so here I am testing or calibrating card number 4. So once again, I connect this to ground. I get ready to adjust this resistor here. I don't use my pencil, I use the other probe. Let's get that. Oops. Shorting stuff as I go. Okay. So now I'm going 12.1 instead of 1.6. Oops, that's the other direction. Because we have 2 different documents here, and I'm trying to find the best values that work between the 2 of them. And if I go 12.1 and then reference over here on pin 7 to 5.35 or 5.36, so I can increase that a bit. Maybe not. Check my notes again. Oh, it is 5.35. Okay. So it is awkward to get that in there. Come on, 12.1, and then go over here, 5.35. It's perfect. Then I move this to max and measure again. Now, check the notes again. I'm looking for 6. So I adjust a different resistor, which is number 3. Going the wrong way. It's amazing how far off some of these are. 6, and I found that typically that will make pin 7 be 5.44, even though that's not what the documentation says. And then if I set the fader around 0 and measure the ground voltage, should get around 4.44. So that's just good enough for me. I'm doing that with each channel now. Now, one of the aspects of calibration is supposed to be to measure the intermodulation distortion of a signal going through the channel. And I'm getting conflicting information from various people about whether I do or don't need to do this and how to do it. But the way to do it is to use an intermodulation distortion analyzer, which I've managed to borrow, but this is a non-fully functional one. So I'm looking at trying to get this repaired to the point where I can use it to do that part of the calibration, because I want everything calibrated correctly. Okay, one of the things I learned from Zach is that you can adjust the output on the power supply using some of these variable resistors that are built in. So let's flip the phone around. The power supply is off right now. If I get the camera down there, you see down in there that little resistor, the screw. So the first one is 48 volts. The second one in there is 48 volts. That's the plus 18, and then the minus 18. So I've adjusted the plus 18. I'm just measuring it off the back of the board here. It's off right now, and then I'm going to do the other two and make sure they're bang on plus 18. There it was about 18.3, I think, when I first measured it. So okay, let's do that. I'm about to do the minus 18. I've got it hooked up. Power this thing on. That one's pretty close, so I will get it as good as I can here. Oops, I'm doing the plus 18 again, damn me. Now I'm gonna have to readjust that one. Oh, so close. Damn perfectionist. There we go. Let's do the plus 18. Actually, it looks like the plus 18 was bang on already, even though I moved the resistor a bit. I moved it back. So now I'll do the 48 volt. So there's the 48 volt. It's at 48.9. I'll grab my flashlight so I can see what I'm doing. And start turning that one. Could be wrong. Maybe that's supposed to be the 24 volt one. Let me check my notes. Okay, the last one is 24 volts and it's bang on. Don't change anything. So now my power supply is finely tuned. Go back to the calibration again. Okay, so I've got myself a intermodulation distortion tester now. Greg loaned me this Amber 3501, and a couple issues. One is I don't think it's sending a test signal out. I've tried to check it. Doesn't seem to be, so I'm not sure I can use it properly without that. I'm still trying to understand it. Secondly, I need some cables that go coax, such as that, so that I can plug directly in from the TT connections, the Bantam. And for the initial test, I'm supposed to go coax to coax, and all I have are these probes. So I'm gonna have to find some cables for that. I've got the power all regulated to exactly plus and minus 18 and exactly 24 volts. So that should be good. Now, if I can get this thing functioning, I can finish doing my initial calibration of everything and then deal with the 4 or 5 strips that have issues and then get this thing moved in. So I'm going to call my local tech. Meanwhile, I was also looking for replacement connectors for the wires that connect to the phase meter, because these have been broken off just below the pins, or just where they connect to the pins, and I couldn't find new pins, I couldn't find new connectors, so I went to a local shop to try and find a replacement. So I've been spending the morning on the computer with a pad of paper and the manual for the console, trying to map out what all my cable connections are going to be, including the patch bay. I just realized that this patch bay layout, this overlay I purchased secondhand, is different than what's in the manual. So the first 10 are supposed to be assigned, and then it's supposed to be from 1 to a couple hundred insert points that I can use. But this one's all laid out with stereo echo returns, and the mults are way over here instead of way back here. So I think I need to order a different patch bay cover so I can make sense of my actual layout. What a pain. So I'll get on that. So I finally figured out how to create a keyboard tray for the console. I was originally going to put a board above the faders, but I found a way to clip a board under the armrest area instead, and this is going to work wonderfully for a keyboard. And then my replacement LEDs for the VU meters finally showed up. This was a glorious day. Okay, I finally took a chance on some LED lights for the VU meters, so I purchased 100 LED lights in just basically a white, which should be close to giving a yellow hue, a warm white. And here they are. You can see some of the older ones there. Quite a bit brighter, but the problem with putting these in, these are only temporarily in, because every time I put them in, I have to figure out which polarity the LED is. It looks like I bent a VU meter while I'm at it. Shit. Oh, damn. Destroyed that one. This is painful because it's really hard to put those lights in without bending things. I've already flipped these ones around the other way. So the polarity's the right way around, I assume, but they're still not lighting up. So got to figure out what's going on there. Okay, every time I bend a VU meter or plug in a bunch of lights and then half of them are in backwards and I have to redo them, I think, why am I doing this? Why not just work with the console I have? It's a digital PreSonus console. It works beautifully. But then something gets achieved and suddenly I'm like, ooh, just wait till all those are lit up. Look at that. That's like the perfect vintage yellow color, even though those are technically white LED bulbs. Looks a bit super glowy on here, but it's not quite that glowy in real life. Maybe from a distance it'll look a bit more normal. But just think, when all those are lit up, only, let's see, I've done 16 of 80, so quite a few to go. It's at 64. I'll get to it. Since there was so many of these to do, I thought it would be a good idea to get some footage of how I pop these open and replace the LEDs inside. And so I popped the first one open and took the cover off and got ready to pull the lights out and realized, oh, great. These ones are soldered in. But not to be deterred and to show my tenacity, I continued on. Got the next one off, saw it was soldered as well and thought maybe the whole bank was, but it turned out no. And then I was able to start working on replacing lights in the rest of them and eventually went back and soldered those couple that needed to be soldered. So this is me being careful with the VU needle this time, trying to pull the light out carefully without bending the needle. It was a real pain to do these. Here I am using a little screwdriver to try and get it some purchase under there and eventually get it out. I think the next one comes out a little bit easier. And I continue like that for the rest of this set of lights and throughout the entire thing. Now I clip these ones a little bit shorter, making sure to keep the positive long still so I can tell which side is positive when I have to flip them around. And then it's just a matter of sliding them in without bending the needles again. Now, sometimes I can get these little LED adapters to pop up so I can slide the LED from the top. Sometimes they're kind of glued down. But slowly I work my way through each of these lights and get them installed. Okay, I've spent the bulk of the afternoon putting LEDs into VU meters. Ended up only having 2 that were soldered. I haven't finished yet, but I've gotten these done. So they're all looking pretty good. I've just got 10 more to go, the 2 soldered ones. Hopefully those last ones are not soldered in place. And then I might have to look at whether or not these ones have different resistors on the back, because everything else is coming out a little bit brighter. This is almost more the brightness I want. But I would live with that. It's totally readable. It looks a lot more blown out on video. Anyways, that's it for today. Well, it's nearly 11 o'clock. I usually go to bed around 10. As you can see out the windows there, it's dark outside. But after watching TV for a bit and then stopping, I decided to try and get more done. And I got everything soldered that needed soldering, and dealt with all the weird little issues. Every single light is working. I've got this one bank here, which probably has a different size resistor in it because it's coming out a little bit lighter or not as bright. So Anyways, that's the LEDs done. That's an amazing step forward. Let's see it without the lights on. Oh yeah, that's a glow, all right. It's probably too bright to see it close up. Oh no, not too bad. See, those ones are really bright, really bright, really bright. Slightly dimmer, just those 8, and then back to bright again. So tomorrow I'll try and fix the phase meter, and then on to next things. So close, always so close. So I'd managed to track down some possible replacement pins for the phase meter connections. And I tried those out. It was really hard to get in behind the board and crimp these things, but in the long run, they didn't work. So I ended up just soldering onto some female to male jumpers, and that got it connected. Okay, I just finished the kludgiest job of soldering the phase meter connections back because I couldn't get the right pins. Let's watch when I boot it up now. I'm still waiting for my laptop to boot. So there's the phase meter, and I'll turn on the power. And, oh, now it's gone 100% phase. The first time I turned it on, it went completely the opposite direction. So we'll see what happens. Well, as you can see, I got the phase meter functioning. Although I don't know if it's showing the correct phase, it's showing phase throughout the song. Okay, so that's where I've gotten to so far. I've got working VU meters that all have new lights. I've got a phase meter working. The calibration process is mostly there. I do not have the specific gear needed to do the harmonic distortion analysis, although I may have more information on that later today even. And now I'm starting to prep for moving this beast into the studio itself. So stay tuned for the next update. Thanks for watching.